What's up, guys? Welcome to another video of Dev Talks with your host Traven, where we talk about everything engineering technology wise. In this video, we're actually going to dive in and talk about how AI is destroying voice actors' careers. So without further ado, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and let's dive right in.
How's it going, everybody? I'm Gary. I'm a voice actor, I'm a gamer, and I'm a PhD in AI voice stuff. Today I wanted to talk about the thing that every voice actor is absolutely terrified of. That is actually understanding why AI is predicted to completely obliterate the voiceover industry. And in order to understand this, we actually have to understand something that is seemingly unrelated to AI, the social side of the voiceover industry. As I'm sure many of you know, there's been a massive controversy with the video game voiceover strike and the Genshin Impact strike. My voiceover mentor, Joe Zizia, who I greatly respect, recently released a video on this topic. So the video got a bit of a mixed reception, and if you ask me, the release of the video was really poorly timed. A lot of people thought the video was biased in favor of the union, and while I don't necessarily agree, I completely understand why they think that. Mostly because while he covered a lot of information about the voiceover union, what it means to go FICOR, and what a Taft-Hartley is, he chooses not to talk about any social aspects of the industry. In fact, he even admits it in his own video.
And that brings me to the real tricky part. The social side of things. Understand that I'm not getting to this here because this is not measurable. It is a feeling. So when we start asking questions like, why doesn't everyone just go FICOR? Or are people being blacklisted for working on non-union games during the strike? These really deal with non-measurable social feelings.
I'm not sure he intended this, but the fact that he chose not to talk about these things may have been more informative than if he had actually talked about them. Because it highlights one specific point. Voice actors cannot speak about the social aspects of the industry, and they will never talk about blacklists. Now, just to clarify, there may be some people who aren't familiar with the entertainment industry lingo who think that a blacklist is a literal list of names. It's not really. As Joe said, the blacklist is mostly just a feeling. If you are on the blacklist, it just means that people will refuse to work with you for any possible reason outside of the merit of your own product. There are plenty of industry
Yeah, the blacklisting, I feel like a lot of people already know. I kind of want to speed it up a little bit so that we can get to the point of actually comparing AI to how it's being detrimental to all the systems and everything. So I'm going to speed it up some. What he's talking about blacklisting, yeah, nobody has a handwritten list. A company or people would decide not to just work with you. Maybe they tell their friends not to work with you as well too, and it's really makes it much harder for you to get work in a sense if you're one of the actors. We get it.
He started cutting all ties with Jacob. This happens all the time in the industry. In Jacob's case, it was because he had the wrong opinions or did something that people didn't like. But it might just be because you said something mean to someone or you criticized their work, or maybe they just think you're ugly. There's virtually no way to stop a blacklist from happening, and it's actually an indicator of a much larger problem in the industry. The voiceover industry has no standards. And by standards, I don't mean like a girl doesn't have standards for her deadbeat biker boyfriend. I mean that the industry doesn't have a clear metric to evaluate a good voiceover performance from a bad voiceover performance. We can look at the field of engineering for a perfect contrast to this. Let's say two people are building a rocket. One flies 20 feet before crashing, the other flies 50 feet before crashing. That in and of itself is a metric for evaluation. Now, it might not be the perfect metric or the metric that you need to evaluate the effectiveness of a rocket, but at the very least, the metric exists. More importantly, it's possible that the guy who built the better rocket is a complete jerk. Now, you can say you don't want to work with the guy because he's a jerk and he's terrible to work with, but you cannot deny that he built the better rocket. All this is just thrown out in the voiceover industry. Their metrics are like which performance is more emotional, which one is more nuanced, which performance is more real or grounded. These things aren't really metrics because they're all opinionated. Voice directors or voice actors or casting directors, they'll always claim that they can just hear a performance and know that's the best performance and that's the right one for the job. Put a pin in that claim, we'll come back to that later. But the truth is, one casting director might like one performance, one casting director might like another performance, and you cannot argue which one is better. It happens all the time. And this lack of standards, this conveniently flexible interpretation of what is good and what is bad is exactly why blacklisting happens. Any casting director could just argue that they weren't the right fit for the job, and there is no way to argue against it. And unfortunately, the most important social aspect of the industry is evaluation and casting. Hugh Klitsky, an amazing...
Yeah, I think what he's comparing here, like how he compared it to engineering, is genius. But in some way I can there's no metrics for, I guess there kind of is in entertainment, like when it comes to sales and things. But like, say somebody's new, you don't really have that. It's really opinionated on how good somebody acted or something in a movie, or how good their voice acting really is, and whatnot. And how many voice actors are really known? I feel like voice acting is extremely well known in anime, and then also in specific games like God of War. Like God of War, whoever plays Kratos, his voice actor, people love that guy. People know him by name and everything. I forget his name, but people know him by name. A lot of anime characters, they know who plays their characters, the voice actors, and those things, especially because they're not visible and stuff. So, but a lot of voice actors, I don't think they get as much recognition for stuff because there's no face to it, which probably he'll get into of, hey, you can't replace it with AI. Or you could just replace them with AI and nobody would know them. Unless goes back into my VO3 video when I was talking about how you can pay for people's likeliness and stuff. But how can you get a voice actor's likeliness unless you know this person actually? You're like, this person is a creator, like Morgan Freeman or somebody, where you actually visually know him, you recognize his voice and everything, and then you get him to read your book for an audiobook, but you pay for his likeliness of his voice for AI and stuff like that. It's really hard for entertainment because even when you hear people talk about the best rappers and things like that, you just look at accolades of sales and things rather than the quality of their music, and that's very extremely opinionated for, and that's the same way in a lot of entertainment aspects, unless the person comes out and attacks the people in the crowd.
Voiceover coach who I really respect summarized it really well in a bit of a comedic LinkedIn post. He said this: "You didn't get the job? Here's why. You sounded like the producer's mom. You sounded like the director's ex. You sounded happy, but not the right kind of happy. You sounded too tall or too blonde or too much like everyone else, and so on." If you read through the entire post, you'll notice that there is a reason that is missing from that list. Someone else is better than you. Because as an industry veteran, he knows that the industry doesn't have those metrics, at least not in a way that actually matters. Because if you look at the metrics that the voice directors use, nuanced, emotional, grounded, real, you'll also notice that there's one metric that the voice acting industry generally doesn't use, and it's probably the most important metric of all: whether or not the audience likes it. And that's the only metric that actually matters. Anyone who's been paying attention to AAA video games the past few years knows that the industry, or at the very least the video game industry at large, tends to use metrics that are inversely correlated with what the audience likes. Often you'll see that the games the industry claims are high quality end up actually being the worst games when rated by the gamers. And unfortunately, the video game voiceover industry is starting to go down the same path. They've used up all their remaining goodwill with the SAG-AFTRA video game strike, and now they're starting to deny that the audience is even relevant to the industry's success at all. But when
This is so disgusting. Oh, any company should know. Like, I don't know why it's so hard. It's like all these people didn't take a business class or something, like, ever in their life. I took an entrepreneurial class, and like, I know a lot of people who start businesses. When you're starting a business, you have to think about your target audience, because your audience and your customers are the people who freaking pay you, who get you your recognition and everything. They hold all the power in your company. Or if all of them go away, you don't make no money and you fail. If you can't build an audience, you don't make no money, you fail. And that's crazy. And it's crazy. It's even crazier because, like he said, those AAA games, the best games that I've played ever in my life, that I've sunk the most amount of time in, are video games that cost $30 and less. So any games that were free to $30, I like them the most. And I'm more inclined to spend money in those games that are free. When I buy a game that's $70, I don't put any more money into those games at all. I'm not paying for nothing. Nothing. You give me a free game, I like that skin. I already put 200 hours into this game. I'm giving them back to the creators and everything. Here you guys go. Here, I got these skins and things, cuz I know I'm going to play this game way more. I'm going to put another 100 hours into this game in my life. So why not? It's a free game. It always builds up, especially the type of games I play. The only few games that I've continuously, and I've kind of slowed down on Call of Duty, but growing up, I was good at Call of Duty, so I bought Call of Duty. Call of Duty used to be $50. Then it went to $60. then it went to 70, then it's at 80, and then they got these crazy bundles that are over $100. Like, nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to pay all that money and stuff like that for the same game. And then you got all these skins and battle pass stuff to make even more money. Like, sorry, that was a crash out. I think that was a reasonable crash out, but almost crashed out there. Oh my gosh, yo. But yeah, the best games are the cheaper ones in my opinion, the ones that are under $30. $30 or less. Uh Best games I've ever played and sunk the most time into. But sitting here and targeting your audience like this is so disrespectful. Because all they can just, if they all got together and said they're not buying the game no more, these companies will switch over with a flick of a switch so quick. As quick as I snap my fingers, they will flip right over because you hurt their pockets. That's all these companies care about the most. They pockets and they money.
When the industry stops caring about how an audience evaluates their product, it always predicts the industry's failure, and worse, predicts their takeover by AI. But if you don't believe me and you want evidence, we can look at another industry that's been just completely demolished by AI, the visual arts. So when I first started my undergraduate in engineering approximately like 15 years ago, I tried to convince every single one of my artist friends that AI was a legitimate threat to art, and of course they didn't believe me because art is the human endeavor. But I pointed to one very specific thing. Since the 20th century, the art industry had lost all standards. We were in the era of Jackson Pollock, who was famous for randomly throwing paint onto a canvas. One of artist Kazimir Malevich's most famous paintings from 1915 was literally a black square. In 2010, a sculptor named Marcel Waldorf won an award for his sculpture of a woman urinating. Essentially, the idea that artistic beauty is in the eye of the beholder is kind of the prevailing theory right now. You couldn't just evaluate art and just say whether or not it was good or bad. This allowed artists to do just about anything and make up a reason for why it's art. But the moment AI art exploded onto the scene, the artists faced a major problem. And that problem actually had nothing to do with artistic skill, and it had nothing to do with technology. It was actually a philosophical problem. If artistic beauty is in the eye of the beholder, it is actually impossible to justify that human art is any better than AI art. Essentially, they had no way to justify their own existence because they gave up their standards over 100 years ago. And the lack of standards that allowed their artistic industry to exist was now being reinterpreted to justify that human artists were no longer necessary. Because without standards, AI art is just as good as anything else. This led to a lot of panicking artists turning to really poorly thought out metrics. Things like AI art had no soul, or AI art had no artistic intention behind its choices. I wanted to see how valid these metrics really were, so I conducted a bit of an experiment-ish interview with a lot of the detractors of AI art, specifically about Jackson Pollock and his work. The experiment was really simple. I showed them two images. One of them was an AI-generated painting. Usually I chose some sort of like fantasy landscape painting like this. The other one is one of Jackson Pollock's paintings. And I asked a very simple question. Do you truly believe that this painting has artistic value and this painting doesn't? And they always said yes. So the natural follow-up was always, please explain why. And this is where they started stumbling over their words. They said things like, there's clear purpose behind the Pollock painting. The Pollock painting actually has like a human soul. You can clearly see the intent behind the Pollock painting, and all these sorts of weird random reasons. And even as they stumbled over,
People are such liars, yo. People are such liars. The reason why that they give that credit is because a person is behind it, right? That is the actual person is the value in art, right? When it comes to music, when it comes to content creation or any entertainment stuff, movies and stuff, there's a reason why certain actors get paid way more and things. It's what you leave behind and how long it lasts and everything. The actual person aspect is what brings value to the specific art. Besides the person being in there, if you just looked at art pieces side by side, it's whatever resonates with you. If I look at this and I'm like, oh, okay, he drew that. I actually personally like the picture on the right, with the cherry blossom leaves and everything more than this. This tells me more of a story than the black thing does with all the lines. It really does tell a different thing to me. This just looks like whatever, like just lines everywhere. And this one gives me another personal story and everything. But what I would say is, if a person is behind this other image, that's what that person in their work that they do is what gives that image value. But to me, when it comes to what I like to see visually, when it comes to art and things, it's whatever you just like more. It's more opinion based and stuff again.
Over their words, I always gave them the chance to take back what they said. Something like, if you can't come up with a reason, you can just take it back and just say the two paintings are equal or something like that. But for like the 100 people I interviewed, they never took it back. They always claimed that the Pollock painting clearly had intent and value and was more interesting, and AI art simply wasn't. So you can just imagine their panic when I revealed to them that that Pollock painting they just gassed up was made by AI. So yeah, I generated that image a couple years back using ChatGPT specifically to run this experiment. And you can believe me, the backpedaling that they tried to do was...
People can't tell the difference, you know? And that's really the point. Like, and I bet you, like, let me finish him just talking about this real quick.
Was absolutely painful. And from here, I asked them a very simple question. Based on what you know now, will you admit that AI art has real artistic value? And like half of them just stormed out before they even had a chance to answer because they knew they couldn't answer without completely destroying their beliefs. If they answered yes, they had to admit that AI art was actually valuable. And if they answered no, they had to admit that they lied. They were told that an image, in this case the AI Pollock image, was valuable simply because Jackson Pollock made it. And from there, they just reverse engineered any reason they wanted to justify why the image was valuable. That sounds familiar. Maybe like a casting director who listens to a voice actor he's friends with and just so happens to hear that he's the best. But everyone knows it's...
All right, so like I said, it's funny that he mentioned the backpedaling thing and when people receive new information, because I've been reading this one book, and it's a book by Jefferson Fisher, The Next Conversation, Argue Less and More. Like, just have better conversations and things in that aspect, right? And last night when I was reading its portion about defensiveness, they actually talked about this. And because of cognitive dissonance, that's what it's called. Cognitive dissonance basically is when you're presented new information that goes against your beliefs and it gives you some discomfort feeling. That's what those people felt in that aspect because they couldn't be truthful. Art is all opinion based on how it looks. You can like AI stuff. It's okay. The problem is they did not say in their statement, my belief is if a person, a real human is behind it, it does present more value because it adds their own personality into the art and whatever they put into it. That's all you need to say. It's not, oh, this one looks better or this one doesn't or whatever. And he called him in that. Another way I would have done it is, hey, these are two pictures. Which one do you like more? And I would have asked him that first. And I was like, now, what if I told you that this one is drawn by a person and this one's AI? How would they feel? Would they switch it up? And maybe you lie about, hey, the AI one is a person, the other one is not. And whatever other crap that you can come up with to try to like trick these 100 people and have different use cases. It provides more edge cases in that aspect. But, and I'm sure he understands what the edge cases are, having an engineering degree and whatnot. But that's the major thing as far as using AI. People will not care. And especially for voice actors, which we're going to get more in, hopefully, nobody's going to care if they just hear some random voice that was generated by AI in the future. And it's just a regular voice, and the voice is just voice acting everything. And you know what you get out of it? You don't get any Snow White mishaps. Where earlier they talked about the gaming company attacking their audience. An AI bot isn't going to attack the audience. It's not going to say no crazy political stuff and have people hate your game or movie or anything or hate you as a person, because part of the artistic stuff that they're trying to sell relies on the people that are a part of it. You don't have those liabilities with AI in doing the voice acting stuff. You don't. It's just going to do what you tell it to do. And a lot of people probably won't even care. They won't care 1 ounce or bit about it at all.
Just the Emperor's new clothes. You know that story of the Emperor dancing around in his underwear and everyone has to pretend he's wearing pretty clothes because they don't want to get beheaded? We look upon a picture of paint thrown on a wall and the artists demand that you pretend it's valuable. But when you show a coal miner a picture of a black square and tell him that it's more valuable than his entire career of mining for coal, when you tell a 9-to-5 office worker that he's uncultured and uncivilized because he doesn't respect the artistic value of a painting of literally nothing, when you stop considering what the common man thinks is good and demand that your art be respected through either nonsensical standards or even just blatant lies, do not be surprised when the common man cheers for your destruction. And unfortunately, this is where the voice acting industry finds themselves now. We've used up all our goodwill in the SAG-AFTRA strike. We've stopped using the same metrics that the audience uses to decide what is a good product. We've blatantly attacked and disregarded the gamers. So do not be surprised when the gamers cheer as AI destroys the entire voiceover industry that has been built on a lie. And by the way, for the few voice actors that are still watching out there, I'm not even saying that casting directors are bad at their jobs. Many casting directors I know are actually amazing at their jobs. But what I am saying is that if you cast someone for a job, you better be able to justify it to the audience. Because casting is effectively deciding who gets to represent your product. So if you end up casting someone who attacks the gamers, is a bully, is threatening, or is just blatantly hostile, I guarantee you won't be able to justify that. Now, since we've talked a lot about...
You know how Disney did it for Snow White? They just said it was her movie. They said it was Rachel Zegler's movie. It wasn't even theirs. They tried to pawn it off. Even though the movie was going to be bad regardless, they tried to pawn it off on her. And they take the movie. I honestly believe companies that do this, that go through these attacks and stuff like that, where they're attacking their audience or they're casting somebody who attacks their audience, those people who attack their audience need to either get blacklisted or just be gone. Or the casting directors need to do a better job at character reviews and what these people do. Like how you get a job, you get a background check. Do background check their character and what they be saying and doing. If it gonna give you any problems before you cast them or something, I don't know. But there needs to be responsibility for it, and he's gonna probably dive more into it. But that's literally the biggest thing on why people don't like it, and the company pays for it. I'm convinced companies in some cases they keep putting out this BS that's crap because they just need the losses for tax write-offs. I swear, I think Disney makes so many trash movies. For that one movie that goes crazy, they can just write it off, all their trash ones off for losses and stuff. They have to be. Like money laundering in some way, they have to be.
About blacklists, I just wanted to leave something with the gamers that is actually really important and can help you take back your games from some of the more malicious players of the industry. The real blacklist belongs to the gamers. This is really important to understand because as a collective, you gamers have a blacklist that is far more powerful than anything else in the industry. And it's actually really easy to use. So say there's a voice actor that you think doesn't represent what you want the gaming industry to be. You simply need to take 2 very easy steps. Step 1, don't buy their games. Super easy, right? If they're in a game and you don't want them to represent the industry, just simply refuse to buy their games. The companies will notice. And frankly, you guys have done a great job of that in the past, taking down a whole bunch of games that you all felt were not really what you wanted. Honestly, it's kind of scary how good you guys are at that. Step 2, let the companies know why you're not buying their games. When a company announces their game on Twitter, for example, simply make a straightforward and simple statement. Something like, due to how this person bullies their fellow voice actors, I will no longer be buying games that feature them. Or, I believe that this person does not represent what I want from the gaming industry, and I will no longer be buying games that feature them. But the next part is really important. Do not be lulled into a bad faith conversation. If someone responds to your post with insults or hatred, simply ignore them. Do not turn your statements into bullying, and definitely do not turn them into threats, doxing, or harassment. The arts industries are really good at ignoring criticism if they can turn it into something worse. Do not give them an excuse to ignore your criticism. Simply make the straightforward statement with no bullying and no insults and walk away. I guarantee you the companies will notice, because at the end of the day, you guys are the ones paying them. And if you guys stop paying them, you bet they will fix things immediately. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. Get out there.
And that's for any company. I love Gary's video. I believe his name is Gary. If you guys want to subscribe to his channel and you like his content, go subscribe and all of that to his content. It seems really great to me. Personally, it seems really great to me. So without further ado, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. How do you think AI is going to impact everybody's careers, especially in the entertainment business? I think it's really gonna ruin it, or they're gonna find different ways to replace these problematic people. It's going to be a tough thing that's coming about. Producers are going to make different decisions. Directors are going to make different decisions regarding everything. With the tools to use AI instead of dealing with an actual person that can provide them with more liabilities that hurt their products. And for any product, this goes for any product that consumers buy. If you guys stop buying it and got together to stop buying it, you would realize how much power, and especially in a capitalistic society, that consumers have if they just all got together and stopped buying stuff. Really. But the thing is, it won't happen. Not everybody's going to agree on some stuff. Some people just won't even care. So, I mean, it's just hard for that many people to get it all involved. But if the majority of people don't like it, they'll stop doing it. If they keep getting the same backlash, they'll stop doing it eventually and they'll get back at it. Disney, I don't know how they haven't switched it up yet. I feel like for years they've been told that they've been doing trash and they keep it up for whatever reasons. But they also got a lot of money, so they probably don't even care. But a lot of these other companies, especially the smaller ones, just stop entertaining it and walk away from them. And when enough people walk away and they're not making as much anymore, and they gotta do layoffs and fire people, and they can't survive anymore, they will notice and they'll start doing stuff differently. But without further ado, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. I really appreciate you all. If you have any recommendations, send me your recommendations down at my email at devtalkspod@gmail.com. Also in the description. Also, Gary's YouTube channel will be linked in the description down below if you guys want to subscribe to him and check out his videos and his other content. And if you want me to interview him also, let me know. He actually gave me an idea to interview one of my artist friends also. So having both of their perspectives in two different interviews might be a dope idea. Let me know if you guys like that idea. But without further ado, peace. See y'all next time.